I'm a bit all over the place today because nothing was working, but welcome to the show. It's the holidays. It's 16th of August, and we'll be talking to Claire Erasmus today, discussing mentally healthy schools.
Live from Bournemouth, this is The Breakfast Show with Mal Krishnasamy on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/LSW/TT Radio or search Teachers Talk Radio.
Morning. Feels like I've been away for years. I've only missed one show. But it does kind of feel like I've been in Narnia. I mean, actually, literally. Because I've been reading this. I've been away camping. And, been away camping. And my two boys, 8 and 5-year-old, I've been reading The Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe to them, which has been great. I've got people trying to call me already, which is nice. Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
I'm on Rwanda.
From Rwanda?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And what made you call in this morning? Okay. Okay, hello. Right. I've just I'm not sure what's going on there. Yes. So like you can hear, it feels like the first day of school again. Because there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm like, what's going on? Loads of people are trying to call in. So, and I haven't started the show properly yet. That's what it feels like. I haven't started yet, and people are calling in. So, do call in if you want to discuss something in particular. But today, I have special guests, Claire Erasmus coming in. George Poynton's supposed to come in as well later on today. And Claire Erasmus has written a book on mentally healthy schools. It sounds like a fantastic guide for all the mental health leads in schools. And the fact that I'm saying mental health leads fills me with joy, actually, because when I first started teaching, there wasn't anything like that. But we had a lot of support for children. So the first school I worked in, we had learning mentors, we had a counsellor on site, we had a nurse on site. There was so much pastoral support. And then as the years wore on, a lot of that, the money dried up, and the first things to go were those kinds of support. And I feel like society has got more difficult for young people today with media and social media, and now with the pandemic and so on. So it's heartening to know that there are mental health leads out there. And I know that there are, I'm coaching a few people who are also well-being leads as well, which I think is fantastic. So well-being of staff as well as students. I'm connected to somebody. Hello.
Hi, Mel. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
It's Claire. Sorry, have I come in too early?
No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine, because I'm having a slight tizzy today because I've had people ringing all over the place. Nothing worked. None of my audio worked. So I was like, and when you messaged me saying, it doesn't look like you're on air, I was like, I've got 10 seconds. And I had 10 seconds to get everything working, and I did. So I was really pleased. Right, 1066 has entered the live studio. We've got quite a few people in the live studio. So do let us know where you're listening in from. Before I went on holiday, we had about 25% of our listeners were from around the world. But I suspect after Hareen's show yesterday, it's a lot higher because Hareen had so many people listening in Africa. It was unbelievable, to the point that none of us knew this could happen. It closed down. Nobody else could get in. There were so many people listening, which was fantastic. But you can listen if that ever happens. Not likely this time in the morning, but like, if that ever happens, you can listen on Facebook, and it is live streamed on Twitter and Facebook. Yeah, and that's it. So Claire,
Yes,
welcome
hi
to the
Mel.
show.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you so
welcome
much.
to the show.
Thank you, and it's very exciting to be on Teacher Talk Radio. I heard so much about it, and been following who you've been chatting to, and it's really exciting. You're sort of capturing the current voice of the day.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love it. I'm a big advocate of Teachers Talk Radio. I mean, and I know that Twitter, where a lot of us are, can get so polarized and so school playgroundish. And what I like about Teachers Talk Radio is that we can have different views and try and understand them and not be all playgroundish. Yeah, and I think that's really important in a democracy that most of us live in.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I just love the whole kind of audio focus. We sort of just get off the written word and we just kind of really just listen to each other and just spend some time listening, which is fab.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I never thought of it like that. And I have to say that previous to Teachers Talk Radio, I wasn't really a podcast person. I wasn't really an audio person. I just read or Kindle, that kind of thing. But Teachers Talk Radio, I think we've got some fantastic hosts. There's always something different, different sides of education and topics that everyone talks about from their angle, from all kinds of different angles from around the world, and it's fascinating. So I'm listening all the time. It's always on in the background. I'm doing washing up or whatever. So Claire, we first met many years ago.
We did.
Oh, I can't remember what conference. It must have been a Women Ed one, was it?
I was going to say it had to be a Women Ed, because Women Ed always brings the greatest groups of people together. It's wonderful. I love Women Ed.
Yeah, fantastic. And you're currently a designated mental health lead advisor and head of the digital technology and communication faculty at Brighton Hill Community School. Now, when I met you weren't there, were you? You were somewhere else, were you?
Yes, I was at another school in Surrey, another comprehensive.
Yeah, and you were doing quite a bit of work on PSHE, weren't you?
Yeah, so I mean, it was about 2012, 2013. I think it all really started to kick off. We started to realize that there was a real need for a focus on mental health and well-being. And I think my line manager at the time, who's actually now my head teacher, he recognized there was a turning point when some of the A-star students never made it to their English exam because they had a huge anxiety panic attack. And the signs had been there from early on, but no one was recognizing that these mental health warning signs, people were just ignoring it, expecting children just to get on with it. And then, of course, look what happens. And of course, there was that on the one end. And then I was the LGBTQ kind of connect and anti-bullying coordinator actually in the school. And I realized that children used to line up to talk to me at lunchtime, just wanting to talk. And it was a lot of issues all connected to mental health. And it was at that point I just realized we need to create a culture of listening, holding the space with these young people, and actually, being prepared to engage in the topic of their mental health. And
Yeah.
and there was just nothing set up. So it was kind of out of sort of recognizing there was that need in that particular school, and I'm sure it was happening in all the other schools, that this role of the mental health lead came came to fruition, really. And I remember at the time, lovely Chris Edwards saying to me, how would you like this role of being the lead on mental health? And I said, I'd love it, but what does it involve? And we had no idea. We had absolutely no idea, because it was at that stage there was really nothing written about this role in particular. And so that's when I took to Twitter, and I took to Women Ed, and I took to networking with people around the world, and learning from the people who were doing it around the globe, all were specialists, and started to piece the puzzle pieces together, really, to get an idea of what this role actually looked like. Yeah, so that was that journey, and I think, if the designated mental health lead planner, this latest gift, to the world in a way, I wrote it because it's something that I would have wanted then. I would have wanted this book then to help me think about it, because being the lead of mental health, you recognize it's a whole school approach, and it's looking at it from leadership and governance down to student support, staff support. There's a myriad of areas you've got to look at, and actually it's quite overwhelming, because it's a huge whole school management role. And so there's one, you can be a specialist in terms of having a real interest in mental health and supporting students and supporting staff. But there's the other side to this role, which is actually, it's a strategic role. It's a management role. And actually those two need to go in hand to make this role really work, so that you see impact in the school. So that's why the planner got written, to sort of, and I wrote it as I was doing it. So as I was actually doing it in the school, or hoping to do it, because I'm afraid COVID hit at one point, and that kind of sent everything sort of, going. But, and I sort of thought, well, this is a good starting point, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does it involve? What does mental, I mean, because like you say, it's huge, it's strategic, you've got the academic stress, you've got pastoral issues. I mean, where do you start?
It's such a good question. I mean, I was just talking about this with someone last night, actually, and it's just always got to start with the fact that mental health is everybody's business. Because the designated mental health lead is just one person. And there is a bit of a culture in schools of, I'm just going to refer this, I'm just going to pass it on to that one person.
Yes.
And that one person cannot roll out this whole school approach with 1,000 children or 500 children in the school. And so the very, very first point is to actually educate all stakeholders in the school, and that this is everybody's business. Mental health, we all have mental health like physical health. And it is it's everybody's responsibility to, number one, recognize what the signs are in themselves, to take care of themselves, and that it's okay to not be okay. No one's perfect. No one's going to have that dream run for every year of their life. Things happen in our lives, and to be mindful, empathetic, caring towards ourselves and towards our colleagues and peers, and then and sort of start with that point. And then the next point is really that actually every single one of us, from every staff member and even senior peers, and junior peers, we can all do something. So it's really educating everybody on what are the signs, and how to have that first conversation, because often that first conversation isn't about saying, I think you should do this, or you need to do this, or you've got this. It's just about listening. It's just about holding that space. and saying, I hear you, I see you, and I care.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and so that's really that starting point. So there's a lot of educating just about the culture. And this can happen in lessons, in sort of PSHE lessons. This can happen in terms of training of staff. And I really believe every staff member needs to be trained. That's site staff, canteen staff, support staff, back staff, front office, back office, teaching staff,
Yeah.
everybody, because you might be on duty in that school and you might see something. You might see that particular child in the corridor, or you might have a relationship with that child. We all connect with different people in different ways, and staff. And actually, it
Yeah.
might be you. You're the right person to actually have that first conversation. So just that training up of all staff to feel empowered that they can do this. I also always say to people, that our place in schools, we're not there to become that mental health specialist, as in that clinician, that psychiatrist, that psychologist, that educational, mental health specialist that's done many years at university or specialist training. We're really there to create a culture where we know what the signs are, and we are prepared to listen, and we're all really clear about what the policy is in the school. And that's another big thing, is to really, that safeguarding agenda, to really know that the minute the young person is at risk, or at risk of harming themselves or anybody else, this becomes a real safeguarding issue. And what is our safeguarding procedures, and what is our safeguarding policies? And when we have the mental well-being ambassadors, when they were active pre-COVID, because obviously that got stalled a bit during COVID, and staff, is that everybody's really clear about safeguarding reporting procedures. That for me is the starting point. In terms of culture, the a more sort of a kind of structural starting point is starting off with a well-being governor, a mental health and well-being governor. Make sure that there's a governor on the team that says, this is going to become part of my portfolio, and has a vested interest. And you sit down with that mental health well-being governor, and with your head teacher, and whoever else on the SLT team is key to this role. And you look at that school development plan, and you look at this whole school approach, and you think about what is going to be the focus for this year. And each school is different. Each school is at a different stage down its road. And working with that school development plan, and working with your whole school approach, you plot it into your year plan. And then now you've got a mandate, and then you make it happen, which is again how one of the things I want to show people is just how to plan it as a year, and then how you pull this through into your termly planner, and then how you pull it through into your weekly planner. Just because there's so much going on. There's so much going on that often, again, I think you just feel really overwhelmed.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? If there's so much, it is that sense of, where do you start? But like you say, you've got the school development plan, and this should be part of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's working with the school development plan is a good one. Another really good thing I would suggest schools do is sign up to a kite mark or a mental health award scheme, because that's great if you get your your governor and your head teacher to agree. And there's loads out there. There's the School of Mental Health Award Scheme, which is fabulous. There's the Innovating Minds Award Scheme. There's Optimus, I believe they had one as well, award scheme. There's loads of groups have all got amazing mental health.
It's a big
and you can be part of the journey.
It's a big part of the national SMSC quality mark as well. That because I'm a verifier for them, and one of the key questions I ask is, what about well-being? How do you ensure work-life balance for staff? You know, do you have any staff surveys, student surveys? How do you ensure, how do you look after the students and the staff, and even, the whole community, really, because that's what a lot of schools are doing. That you find that the amount of work they're doing to support the mental health of the entire community is pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And yes, exactly. And it's great that these kite marks have these frameworks which
Mm.
are all really clear and simple for the senior mental health lead and the wellbeing team to follow.
Mm.
And yeah, and quite quickly you'll start to see impact actually using these structures.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose it's a bit like a mark scheme in a way, that when you look at a mark scheme, it tells you what you know, what you don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
what you need to work on. It's that same principle with these frameworks, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And and
Mm.
and again, I I mean, I pulled back from the day-to-day running of being the mental health lead, but certainly
Mm.
in the early days, you quickly realize that there's no ways you're going to achieve it all in 1 year.
Mm.
And I recommend that you set yourself a 5-year plan, actually.
Yes.
And working with these schemes, these kite marks or these award schemes, often they've got sort of 3 levels that you can go to
Mm.
get to your top level, and just
Yeah.
just work through it gradually and consistently, and just sort of chip away, and
Yeah.
eventually you'll see the culture becoming
Mm.
very, very evident. But again, it's got to come from the top. If you
Yeah.
have a leadership team that just talk it but don't walk it,
Yeah.
it very quickly the staff will see, that, and the students, and they'll go, "You're not really serious about this, are you?" Um,
Mm.
so it does need to be modeled right from the top, and it needs to be
Mm.
part of the language of the
Yeah.
leadership team,
Yeah.
and so everybody will come on board. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've said part of that is CPD for all,
Yes, yes.
to give them an understanding. Is part of that because, and would you recommend the mental health first aid courses for
Absolutely, it's a
staff? Yeah.
fantastic course. I,
Yeah.
I actually think mental health first aid course should be compulsory for every PGCE
Mm.
teacher.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing course,
Yeah.
and I think we receive so much instruction about physical health, 5 a day, exercise, etc.,
Mm.
and the importance of it all. But yeah, the mental health first aid course is a fantastic course, and the more people in your school who can just do that course, the better you will be as a school
Yeah.
in terms of prepared. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, I did the course last year, and in terms of coaching school leaders, it's been um, yeah, invaluable, actually, because a lot of school leaders have been on the edge, and I've been able to recognize signs. I mean, there's that tipping point between stress and mental health issues, isn't there? And
Yes,
so
yes.
knowing the difference is useful. You're not diagnosing, but you're given the language to be able to help.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just love the mental health first aid sort of action plan, the LG,
Mm,
which is approach the person, assess and assist, listen,
mm,
then give support, then encourage the young person to get appropriate help, then encourage
yeah.
others, supports. There's that really the 5 basic steps. And if you just use those 5 basic steps in all your dealings with young people, actually, you're on the right track.
Mm,
So it's a great one to do. And they've also got the advanced courses as well, um,
mm.
which is fab.
Yeah, excellent. Right, I'm going to cut to the news, and
Okay.
you stay with us.
Okay. All right. I'll
You
mute
stay with
myself.
us, and I'm going to cut to the news. Okay. If
Okay,
I
Mel.
can find it, yeah. Okay, here it is.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. All 16 to 17-year-olds will have been offered a coronavirus vaccination by the 23rd of August, according to the latest government targets. The idea behind the set date is that students will have enough time for the vaccination to begin providing some protection against the virus before the return to school in September. A new walk-in centre finder is available in app form for young people. There are no plans at present, however, for the second jab to be offered. The Health Secretary has put out a statement encouraging young people to get your jabs as soon as you can, so we can continue to safely live with this virus and enjoy our freedoms by giving yourself, your family, and your community the protection they need. More than 3.1 million children in England are attending schools where air pollution is rife. Children in London are 4 times more likely to go to a school where air pollution levels exceed global limits compared to those in the rest of the country, according to new research. 98% of London schools are in areas where air pollution is above the World Health Organization's acceptable threshold, compared to just under a quarter of schools across the rest of the country. Mayor of London Sadiq Khan said, "I'm doing everything in my power to stop young Londoners breathing air so filthy that it damages their lungs and causes thousands of premature deaths every year. This is why I'm expanding the ultra-low emission zone later this year." Public Health England has said air pollution is the biggest environmental threat to health in the UK, estimating around 28,000 to 36,000 deaths a year can be attributed to long-term exposure. That was your latest Teachers Talk Radio News.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsier puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.cre8tiveresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TT Radio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TT Radio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Introducing the Leadership Masterclass series by Diana Osagi. Learn how to ditch your fears and develop your leadership confidence.
how to deal with difficult colleagues, how to thrive when you lead in a challenging environment, and how to get colleagues to buy into your vision. Join Diana for her online leadership masterclasses starting on the 10th of July and running all the way through the summer. These sessions are the perfect way to prepare and refresh for the next academic year and beyond. Book your place at courageousleadership.co.uk/events now. The first 50 leaders to sign up get an additional free mini coaching session with Diana herself. Don't miss this. Courageous Leadership Masterclasses at courageousleadership.co.uk/events.
Welcome back.
Hi, Mel.
Okay, hi. Hi, Claire. How you doing?
I was just thinking, the news said for 15 and 16-year-olds getting the vaccine.
Yes, I think it was 16, 17-year-olds, is it? 15?
Right.
16?
So,
Something like that, yeah.
so it'll be my 15-year-old soon then. Brilliant.
Yeah. I think in Europe, they're way ahead. I was listening to, I don't know if you listened to the SAGE report on Fridays. They're the independent SAGE group. The SAGE group used to advise the government, but I think the government stopped listening because it didn't fit their narrative. But so the independent SAGE, they meet every Friday and they give an update on what's going on around the world and in Britain. And it was quite interesting that one of the things it said about schools was that in other countries around Europe, there were clear guidelines on how to keep schools safe. Schools will be safe if, everyone needs to wear masks. There needs to be clear ventilation, this, that, and the other. There were all these guidelines, and not even guidelines. It was kind of, this needs to happen. Otherwise, you can't really open your school. It's unsafe. And then where it came to Britain, it said, schools are safe. That was it. It didn't say anything else about what kind of support or help or what needs that. Nothing. Just schools are safe. So that was pretty interesting. Okay, so coming back to mentally healthy schools, what do you feel what have you seen in terms of the impact of COVID and in turn exam debacles, all that kind of thing? What do you feel has been the impact, and how can schools help young people?
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to applaud all the school leaders out there. I think the leadership teams have been phenomenal in the way they have responded to this, this avalanche of instructions from the DFE and, as you say, from the government, and responded really, really quickly and under huge pressures. And I've just been so impressed with how leadership teams have tried to keep their ships, the school ships, on the right track, steering towards that goal of educating our young people and supporting our young people, and also meeting all of these deadlines. The collateral damage has, without a doubt, been the staff. I have seen a level of exhaustion I haven't come across in my 24 years of teaching, because teaching under COVID conditions has really taken its toll. Whether you were working remotely and on the screen for really long hours, or whether you were having to teach with a mask, or you were having to teach with all the windows open, or you couldn't hand out textbooks, there was you couldn't go too close to the young people. It was really it took its toll. And then, of course, having to put remote lessons up there as well as doing live lessons, and almost a double level of work and the tracking. So definitely, I think our staff well-being took its toll. And this holiday couldn't have come sooner. So hopefully in September, staff are going to be recharged. I think we've learned quite a lot of positives have come out of, in terms of the COVID practices, the way we've moved online, the way, we've embraced tech. the way we've reduced maybe the need for so many face-to-face meetings and just doing things over Teams and allowing people to do parents' evenings from home,
Yes, that's been a
online.
game changer. Yeah.
Absolute game changer. So it hasn't been all like bad. I think we've taken away some really golden nuggets of good practice when it comes to the well-being of our staff. And I'd like to see head teachers and leadership teams thinking, okay, well, let's not go back to the same old. Let's keep the bits that are good and absolutely adapt our practice. Regarding our young people, I've just been really impressed with their resilience. They've just bounced back like little bungee jumps. They've just really been amazing. However, there has been a significant trauma in a lot of families, and that trauma could be due to employment, lack of income, substance misuse, domestic abuse. And we are starting definitely to see that now in terms of the stats and the numbers, I think, that are coming back into schools. So particularly for those cohort of vulnerable young people, this whole thing about being the designated mental health lead is that you set up a culture which is preemptive and proactive. So more than ever, we need to have a team. I like to think of a mental health and wellbeing team made up of mental health first aiders. They're all trained as mental health first aiders. They can have various roles in the school, but they actually are your mental health first aiders who will be looking to quickly scoop up these vulnerable young people, hold the space with them, put really positive interventions in place for them and their families sometimes as well, working closely with the parents, and just support these young people, as we go back into sort of post-COVID normal, and because the trauma doesn't leave the body, and that needs a really particular approach and kind of level of support. So that's kind of been my observations so far. And again, my recommendation to school leaders is to say, great, set up your designated mental health lead, your senior mental health lead, but also get as many staff trained as mental health first aiders. And then you set up what's called, almost like your own little faculty, the mental health and wellbeing team, or the mental health and wellbeing action group, or whatever you want to call it. And so that when these interventions happen, whether the young person gets pulled out of lessons or whether it happens at lunch times, or with other peer support or however, you have a group of trained adults who can coordinate and oversee these interventions. Because sometimes the intervention might just be one session, one-to-one. It could be a group session which you run for 3 weeks, once a week, or 6 weeks. It could be a particular cohort just comes into an assembly room and just listens to a particular speaker, and that cohort all might be showing signs of self-esteem or eating disorders or sexual orientation, questions or issues, or homophobia. I don't know, but you can tackle these interventions in various ways. But you need a team to run it. And one of the things I said to you is lunchtime. Like, so in the 2 schools I've worked in, they set up a wellbeing square or a wellbeing zone or whatever, and in this particular square or zone are different rooms. Now these rooms open at lunchtime, so they're classroom by lesson time, but they actually become a different type of room at lunchtime. And one can be the anti-bullying room to help talk through while the young person is feeling like they're being bullied or are being bullied, and you can have strategies for support. We've got another room in our current school which I hope comes alive soon, which is the freedom to be room. And it's great. So if you have an ideology that is some children come in with quite right-wing, homophobic, racist, xenophobic views. Instead of punishing the young person and saying, according to the Equality Act of 2010, that's wrong, blah blah blah. You ask them to go to the Freedom to Be room at lunchtime, and there they will meet with other young people that are really pro anti-homophobic, anti-racist culture, in their school, that really celebrate diversity and inclusion. And they, together with that particular staff member, can have a really informative, healthy, discussion around it. And sort of instead of just saying that's wrong, you can really start to unpick it. And of course, that's all part of this culture, diversity and inclusion, and accepting who we are, and recognizing our differences and some of the cultural baggage we bring with us, how that can also inform our mental health and well-being, and being prepared to listen to it. So another room you could have, people don't realize the importance of a quiet room. So in our school, we've got the Q room, and it's where you can just go and have lunch in silence.
Do you know, that's one of those things that is a question we ask as part of SMSE verification, is when we ask children, if you just want some quiet time, you just want just no noise, just you, is there somewhere you can go? And a lot of schools have this, particularly primaries have this, and special schools have this, where they have an area where they can go and they can just be, which is, and they appreciate that. The kids just appreciate, because there's so much noise. There's noise everywhere, isn't there? And if you're more introverted and you just need a bit of quiet time, it's good.
Yeah, exactly. And the quiet, sometimes people feel like interacting, and sometimes people are dealing with other issues and they don't want to actually particularly interact. They don't feel like they're able to, or they might just be having communication problems, and then instead of it all just getting out of hand, you can just quietly pull back and have your lunch. Exactly. And that is a really key part towards sort of like that whole thing of sort of self-compassion and being kind to yourself, and actually offering and affording yourself a space and a time just to be quiet and just be and reflect if you need to. Similarly, on the other side for staff, a lot of schools are starting to set up their own mental health and wellbeing room for staff. And again, this is slightly different space to the staff room, because it's a space where it's quiet. People should be allowed to just sit there in silence, and practice their mindfulness, or as you say, gather their emotions,
It's
So
amazing.
I can't remember what was the question.
No, I can't remember either. But when I think about when I came back off my first maternity leave, I'd been off for 7 months, and I can imagine anyone on maternity leave in the last year it'd be a million times worse, because I was able to once a week go and see my NCT group, and I'd go to all these baby groups, which I hated, but I just went along just to get some company. And and I just think when my first day back at work was so overwhelming, because I didn't realize how much I talk to people at work, and how much my room was like a revolving door. People come in. It was like they stored up 7 months worth of angst just to come in and tell me all about it. And then nobody else to talk to. And then as soon as I was back, they were like, oh, right, I could tell Mal about this, and it was all coming out. And I just found it all so overwhelming because of that 7 months of, I suppose, quiet, which is me and my little one. But and I think that doesn't suit everybody. That noise, that kind of constantly around people. You realize you're on. I suppose in a way, some people are acting, and if you're more introverted, you're acting extroverted quite a lot of the time. You're in an extrovert's world, and that must be exhausting.
Yeah, and I think certainly in secondary, which is my area of specialism, there's a Molotov of cocktail of emotions sort of happening in these young people's bodies, and emotional regulation is really key actually to mental health, is being able to recognize that sign where I'm actually getting really cross and really angry and really upset, and my emotions, I need to regulate it. So having a space where that at break or at lunchtime I actually have a space I can go to, and I can just ground myself again, and I can just say to myself, and those are important skills to teach our young people. I mean, like, they're important skills to teach our staff. I know still there's a point where my own emotional regulation is like, I really need to pull back when I'm feeling like it's all getting too much. And in a school, it's important that we offer spaces for this to happen. There are spaces for you to go to, and people fully respect when you're in it, and they don't bug you at all. It's like that timeout sign. Yes. So as I say, and that creating spaces like this is an intervention. Just creating that physical structure, and then having what I call your mental health and well-being adult support team around it, that becomes an intervention. So it doesn't necessarily mean taking young people out of lessons has to be an intervention. You can set it up in so many different ways. And another kind of intervention is encouraging all young people to get involved in at least one extracurricular. Because I think this whole thing about taking our young people out of their comfort zone, getting them to try something new, getting them to, be that, as we know, 10% braver, just go and try something and discover something else about yourself, and building up your own resilience. That is a real positive in boosting your self-esteem, connecting with a new group of people, discovering something about yourself you didn't know, and all that sort of great self-awareness. So that also, I believe, is like another type of intervention, especially with our vulnerable people who just sort of feel like they're in this toxic bubble, and can't quite sort of seem to get out of it. Really encourage them to get involved in after school, and make sure that the people who are running all these extracurriculars, that these events are free. People shouldn't have to pay for all these extracurriculars, that they're available, and there's something for everyone. Because that's my next point, is that when we build a culture, mentally healthy schools, we're building a community. And you know what? People need to feel part of the community. They need to feel valued. They need to feel they make a contribution. They need to feel like, they are recognized as part of the community. And many of our young people just feel like they don't fit sometimes, that they're not part of the community. They have nothing to offer. They just are a problem. And and I think creating that community, getting the young people in everybody involved in some way, just you build a lovely you build lovely relationships and trust, and and it goes a very way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because I've been talking to a number of special schools, I suppose, additional needs schools, and
Yes.
what they've done. These schools are incredible, and they're full of children that have not didn't survive mainstream, couldn't survive in mainstream, or pretty much rejected by mainstream, not welcomed in because they didn't fit. There seems to be this box seems to be getting smaller and smaller. It's like you need to be academic, you need to be an extrovert, you need to be, a certain type, and if you don't fit that mold, mainstream doesn't know what to do with people. And but these children were absolutely thriving in this setting.
Wonderful.
Just, I mean, I was crying. I'm like known for this, but I was just, when I was talking to the parents and talking to the governors, I was just crying with just, oh, this is beautiful. And the children, they were saying how, the teachers really care. There's always somewhere for us to go. We've got a quiet space. They find different ways of getting us to learn. And you can see, and the parents have said that it's completely changed their lives as a family, how the schools have dealt with their children and supported the family as well. And a lot of the work they do is around mental health and well-being and making the children feel unique and special. And not special as in, okay, there's something wrong with you, but everybody has unique gifts. And I just love that. And I think that's in a
Absolutely.
lot of schools, it's kind of missing, partly because people don't have time. The
Well, this
time
is it.
level is, I've noticed that when I first started teaching, I had an hour for lunch, and I'd always do some sort of club at least twice a week. And one was handwriting club, and really it was members of my form who were what mainstream people would probably call the oddballs. The oddballs, they weren't the mainstream type of kids, and they'd come sit with me, and not a lot of handwriting was done. It was just mainly just chatting. And I knew it was doing them the world of good to be able to talk about their thoughts and their feelings and what do I do if this happens? How do I deal with that, miss? Kind of thing. And when do you get the time to do that now? And I think that's a real issue in schools. And I think the other thing is with one school I worked in, we moved into a new building and they basically got rid of the staff room. And you didn't have your own classroom. You just had the humanities area. And the humanities area, everyone's working. And so there was nowhere to have a chat.
Yeah.
There was nowhere to, and I thought I can't work in this situation because there was nowhere to have a chat with the children because they were in the wrong section of the school, so they were being kicked out. And there was nowhere to talk to staff because you felt like you're disturbing people with work. And you're like, what are we, robots?
No, I think and this is again a really critical point you've touched on. So the DfE has said by 2025 that they would like every school to have a senior mental health lead. They haven't as yet made it statutory, but I'm pretty sure we're going to go that way. It will become statutory like the DSL eventually. But so that's great. Okay, so they say this is what we'd like, right? So, but there's a couple of things that need to be created here, which is remuneration for this role. This role has to be a standalone role, and people have to be given time to carry it out. Now, in the beginning, and I was one of those people, we would take it on board with another role simply because there wasn't the money available in the budget to say you're going to be paid this for this role. So we need a budget set aside for not only the person taking the role, but also for the person running, this whole school approach. And then included in that, when I say to you, everybody's a mental health gatekeeper, mental health is everybody's business. You need to make sure staff have time to do this. Now, most schools have 3 PPAs or whatever, which is your personal preparation time. I would like to see 4 PPAs, but that 4th one has to be you're doing some work with a child. So you get your 3 PPAs, and that's just standard, directed time for planning preparation. But you get a 4th one, and that is to do intervention work. And whether you choose to do that intervention work after school, or whether you choose to do it before school, or whether you choose to do it, if you need to during your own non-contact time, and maybe take the child out of a lesson or whatever, however that school wants to work, but so that everybody has directed time once a week to do intervention work. So you didn't have to feel, oh, when can I fit that in? And I agree with you in terms of the physical structures. Our schools are growing; they are really growing. And so when these mental health support teams, these mental health support teams that are being sort of rolled out in various trailblazing areas, they need spaces, for example, to meet these young people. And so, and when our external agencies come in, they need spaces. And as you say, you need a space. So we actually also need to start building, spaces for these contact points to happen where you don't have to walk around the school looking for a private, quiet space. There is an area, and you can just you just book it, or something like that. So what I'm trying to say is, it is about creating the culture, and there's a lot of concepts you can roll out. But actually, we need the physical structures in place, which is the money for the role, the budget for the role, the physicals, those, that Q room, that freedom to be room, that anti-bullying room, that well-being room, that space needs to be made available at lunch times, and you don't need a separate space for it, but it is a classroom that turns into that space, and everyone needs to agree that that can happen. COVID put a bit of a span in the works because we couldn't mix year groups, and of course a lot of this is about mixing year groups. So I'm hoping when we return, we'll be able to sort of take that back, which is that freedom of movement, and we can have these spaces again.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Absolutely. Okay, let's come to your book then. So tell us more about your book, because that's been launched this week, isn't it?
It is actually been launched this week, and I'm really humbled actually that Jessica Kingsley Publishers sort of have supported me in this way and allowed me to publish this book, because I've written what I've written is what I would have liked 6 years ago, whatever. So I've really tried to make it as practical as possible, and I recognize that schools are done different stages in building this whole school approach. So it really is just like a little checklist to say, Claire's spoken about this and this and this. Yep, I've got that. Oh, I haven't considered that. Oh, let me sort of go back to my year planner and look at it. One of the key things is not only just how I work from the year plan down to the term plan down to the weekly plan, and I just pull that information through. But I've tried to, it's not all, I've tried to put in a section in each week, which is about the self-care for the mental health lead. So, I know Dr. Pookie Knight-Smith does this wonderful, 3 things I'm grateful for, and it really does help actually in terms of your daily, weekly focus. So there's a little section of what you're grateful for. There's your own mental well-being action for yourself, that week. So what am I going to do for myself this week? And also this whole thing about encouraging us to read, listen, and get our own sort of CPD, so we never stop learning, and encouraging that mental health lead to constantly be looking at how they can upskill themselves and inform their own practice or inform their own well-being. So I've tried to make it so it's quite balanced, and with lots of little appendices and resources. The bit I'm most excited about is measuring impact, because this is a key thing. Your SLT will say, yes, but how can we measure impact? We put this energy into this little particular area. We've set up these resources. We spent this. How do we measure the impact in terms of making a difference? And there is Appendix 3 has suggested outcomes for measuring the impact of interventions. And that's quite a difficult one, because when you're dealing with a young person who's showing real anxiety and panic attacks or anger management or early signs of depression or has been a victim of domestic violence or grief or, or possibly self-harm, how do you measure impact when you are rolling out one of your interventions? And the resource in the back of this book comes from this fabulous organization called East to West. And I came across them when I was in Surrey, and they're a relationships charity that go into schools and do incredible work with families and young people who are vulnerable and at risk. And I came across their little, it's like they have it as a little key ring, like the outcomes for different interventions. And so after 6 weeks, you see, these are the outcomes we're going for, and this is how we're going to measure impact. So I've actually put that in the book, and I think that's going to be a game changer for a lot of mental health leads. Is how can I measure impact? We know
Mm.
how we can do it when we listen to the student and staff and parent voice. We roll out a survey at the beginning, we ask a set of questions, and we roll out the same survey at the end of the year, and we ask the same set of questions, and that's a great way to see impact in that way, in terms of listening to the actual voice of our stakeholders. But how do we see impact when it comes to actual individual interventions, and you yourself are not a mental health clinician? So that's in the book, and I found it's extremely helpful, and I know my team at my school have all found it really helpful in terms of what is it we're looking for, which will be positive outcomes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there we go. So, it's there. People might use it, read a bit of it, put it down. They might read a little bit of it later on in the year, put it down. They might use it every week of the academic. It's been written to help all 39 weeks of the academic year.
Yeah.
I'd be really happy to get feedback. Already, the world has changed, and so already there are things that should go into it. I think, but that's the nature of
book 2.
A book. Yeah. In fact, I've just got up on my screen right now. I see, the DFE brought out mental health and wellbeing resources for teachers and teaching staff in June 2021. It's a wonderful PDF, and I'm just looking at it now, and there's some great materials coming out now. So there's lots to support our staff.
Yeah.
I think just one of the things is all these different little interventions. Because staff get quite like, what do I do if that child has just suffered grief, and what do I do if this child is showing early signs of self-harm, and what do I do if there's been domestic violence, and this is a key area where I feel all mental health leads and the mental health and wellbeing support teams could do with a lot more critical training. Now, I know, like, for example, Dr. Pookie Nadsmith on a creative education, she's got some lovely stuff happening there, real bite-sized stuff that you could tap into, and there's various courses you can go on to as well. The Carnegie, as I say, offers some fabulous postgrad courses, and Innovating Minds also do some really great webinars. So there's lots of stuff out there. And of course, the Anna Freud website is amazing. So much there.
But
the problem is you've got to keep upskilling, and so people need time to go on these little courses. People need time to do the reading, go onto these websites, buy the manual, buy the book, read it, and that's something we're not being given. Again, it's the time to understand what it is I need to do here, and to just read up on it. Again, so that thing you came back
it's
to,
interesting what you say about time, because previously you said about PPA and having 4 PPAs, and the fourth one to be spent on intervention with children. And I think Tom Rogers was interviewing, I can't remember his name now, but the guy from OPEC, is it OPEC? Yeah. And he was saying that British teachers, apart from American teachers, teach the most hours in a week. And so in Japan, they would only teach about 11 hours, and half of the rest of the time is planning, and the other half of the time is with children doing intervention, one-to-ones, stuff like that. And so they really get to work on their craft and really get to understand children's needs on an individual level, rather than a whole group or like a mob of kids, if you like, or a whole year group or something like that. So I think with more time there's so much we could do.
Absolutely, and otherwise this all looks great on paper. We can write these books, and the DFE can put out this wonderful PDF that I'm busy reading at the moment with all these hyperlinks to, I'm just looking right now, the kind of support, for particular children. There's mermaids, and there's papyrus, and there's shout, and there's all sorts of, there's the mix, but you need time to go into these, to explore these, and as you say, time then to carry out the intervention with that young person. And
Yeah.
if we don't take it seriously, that's all it is. It's just looks good on paper,
Yeah.
and there will be no impact seen. And one of the things is that our schools have got our class sizes are bigger and bigger and bigger. So that planning and preparation time, a lot of you're using all your time because you've got that much more marking to do, you've got that much more planning to do,
Yeah.
especially so I don't want to be moaning here, but I want to hammer home that if we're going to be putting in this intervention for our young people to build mentally healthy schools, absolutely, Mel, we need to be serious about designated time being given to all staff to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you so much, Claire, for coming in to the studio and talking to
Mel.
us about, well, you just talk about all of this stuff with absolute passion, and it's great to listen to. And hopefully this book will be a great help to all the mental health leads out there. And just saying that there are mental health leads out there for schools is fantastic in itself, isn't it? Because
Yes,
up to 5
absolutely.
years ago that wasn't happening, and this is when we need it the most, I'd say. So where can people find out more?
Well, find out more about just generally being a mental health lead.
Well, do you know what, Claire? When we were talking, when we were passing messages, and I was like, what would you like to do? Because I wanted you on the show, because I know you're passionate about PSAT, mental health, all that kind of thing. And I was like, what would you like to talk about? And you're like, oh, I don't know. And I went on your Twitter feed, and I was like, oh my God, your book is out in a couple of days after you come into the show. And I'm like, come on, woman. You need to be talking about your book.
Oh, you're so right.
Talk about your book, woman.
Of course. My Jessica Kingsley publishers are probably
your publicist is like, it's gonna slap you when they see you next.
Okay. So right, absolutely. Where can you get the book? It's coming. It'll be available on the Jessica Kingsley publisher website. So you can go there, and there's a host of other superb books there. And then, of course, it'll be available on Amazon and Waterstones and all the other leading platforms where you want to be able to buy books. So it's there, and I do talk about my first book, which was the Mental Health and Wellbeing Handbook for Schools, which is transforming mental health support on a budget. And I do recommend that sometimes, there's some key case studies in there that can help inform the ideas that you might want to put into practice by using the planner. So definitely go online. You can pre-order now. It would be fantastic for you to get it, and then do let me know on Twitter. Follow me, and I'll follow you back, and let me know how useful it is. And I've got broad shoulders, I can take it. But equally, if you find it's been helpful and it's just helped to give the focus you need, I'd love to hear you shout about that. That'd be fantastic.
Brilliant. Great to talk to you, Claire.
Thank you
it's
so
Erasmus
much, Mel.
Teach, isn't it? Erasmus
it's
Teach.
at C Erasmus Teach, and I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I do. You don't know how much it means to me when people get hold of me and go, "I've just read your book. I find this really, really helpful," because that's what I need to know. And also let us know what else you need. What else are you looking for? Because this needs to be filtered down. But fantastic. I will be doing some work with various organizations this year. So just follow me on my timeline, and you'll see what I pop up there and who I'm working with. Which I'm really looking forward to that too.
Brilliant. Okay, good to
Thank
talk
you, Mel,
to you.
for the opportunity
All right,
to talk to you.
No,
you take
no
care.
problem. Yeah, you
Okay,
too.
bye.
Speak soon. Bye.
Bye, Mel.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. All 16 to 17-year-olds will have been offered a coronavirus vaccination by the 23rd of August, according to the latest government targets. The idea behind the set date is that students will have enough time for the vaccination to begin providing some protection against the virus before the return to school in September. A new walk-in centre finder is available in app form for young people. There are no plans at present, however, for the second jab to be offered. The Health Secretary has put out a statement encouraging young people to get your jabs as soon as you can, so we can continue to safely live with this virus and enjoy our freedoms by giving yourself, your family, and your community the protection they need. More than 3.1 million children in England are attending schools where air pollution is rife. Children in London are 4 times more likely to go to a school where air pollution levels exceed global limits compared to those in the rest of the country, according to new research. 98% of London schools are in areas where air pollution is above the World Health Organization's acceptable threshold, compared to just under a quarter of schools across the rest of the country. Mayor of London Sadiq Khan said, "I'm doing everything in my power to stop young Londoners breathing air so filthy that it damages their lungs and causes thousands of premature deaths every year. This is why I'm expanding the ultra-low emission zone later this year." Public Health England has said air pollution is the biggest environmental threat to health in the UK, estimating around 28,000 to 36,000 deaths a year can be attributed to long-term exposure. That was your latest Teachers Talk Radio News.
Welcome back. We have been talking to Sir Erasmus Teach, as I've always called her for years, Claire Erasmus. Fantastic talking to her. I mean, her passion just really shines through about mentally healthy schools. She's written this book that she's rubbish at promoting. She's terrible. It's almost like, oh yeah, by the way, I've written this book, but it's going to be a very helpful book, an incredibly helpful book for all mental health leads in schools, with different ways of supporting young people and staff's mental health. So it's been great talking to Claire, and the last time I saw her was at a Women Ed event, and sadly, there hasn't been many Women Ed events in the last year or so for obvious reasons, but there's been quite a few online events actually, and I went to a couple and it was quite interesting. You know, you've got leaders, current leaders, former leaders, all talking about what's going on and important leadership issues. Now, usually I talk about the news. I have a segment of 15-20 minutes where I talk about the news. I have been away for a week, and as I was saying at the beginning of the show, it feels like I've been in Narnia because it really was a proper break. We were camping. We were camping in Dorset. We live in Dorset, the other side of Dorset. And when I say other side, there's the Dorchester end, where Corfe Castle and all that is, and there's the end that I'm in, which is like the Southbourne end, Hengistbury Head end. And so we were in the Swanage end, Corfe Castle, Swanage end, camping. And it was, first few days, a bit rough because of the rain. It didn't stop raining, but it was still fun because luckily we've got not only the tent that you can sit in. I mean, to be fair, our tent is ginormous, and the living area, not the bedroom the boudoir area, but the living area is about the size of our living room at home. So the kids were in there happily playing and doing what they do, so it was fine. I got to read quite a bit, but I was reading The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe to them, and it was great. Now, I have read it to my 8-year-old before. It was my favourite book when I was growing up, and I was constantly taking it out the library, constantly. So it was almost like a permanent feature, and I'd read it every few weeks, and I'd read all the other ones as well. I remember quite enjoying The Last Battle and The Silver Chair and so on. And it was just amazing reading it to my boys, and they wanted to hear more and wanted to hear more. And I have to say, we had 8 full days of no technology apart from my Kindle. And I haven't got a clue what's going on in the news because we had no reception. And that was a complete game changer for me in terms of me relaxing. No email, no social media. I have absolutely no idea what's going on in the world. Which is very unlike me, because those of you that listen often know I'm quite political. I have my views. I'm always on top of what's going on in the world, roughly. Well, in the UK and Europe, I suppose the world is a bit much. But I feel like I came back and I thought, oh, I'll have a look at the news, and it was a bit of a shock, really, what's been going on. Having reading that there's been a shooting in the UK, in Plymouth, which isn't that far from me, I suppose, in Bournemouth. Reading about the shooting, reading about what's happening in Kabul. I just had a look at the headlines, and Kabul has fallen to the Taliban. The Taliban have basically taken control of Afghanistan again. So you kind of wonder what is the game plan. It's interesting because Tom Rogers and I have had a few discussions about the whole Afghanistan thing, and I've always been clear that I don't think we should have gone in the first place under the guise that we went in for. But once we were there, we needed a plan, and it never seemed like there was a plan. And we can see clearly with American and British troops leaving, there clearly is no plan because it's just gone back to how it was before. So that was my issue with it. My issue with the whole thing has always been, well, if you're going to go into another country, then you need to know what the end game is, and there doesn't seem to be. Right. And actually, for once, the Daily Mail, they've got a headline that I agree with. What the hell did they all die for? Now, it's got a picture of British soldiers holding a coffin with a British flag, and after 20 years, Afghanistan abandoned in days. Fears grow for our brave translators, mounting panic in rush to flee Taliban. Now, families of 457 British heroes who sacrificed their lives ask, what the hell did they all die for? Now, that is my issue with it. It's, I've taught children in London from Afghanistan who, kids that had never been to school because there were girls who weren't allowed to go to school, boys and girls who saw the most horrendous atrocities by the Taliban. And the Brits went in and the Americans went in, and now they've just left with no support for the public. And you can see here, I just don't understand what the whole point was, and the amount of British soldiers that died, and you kind of wonder, what was it for? So there's about 6,000 British people in Afghanistan, and the paras have gone in to save them. Yes, every single front page rightly is talking about this, and apart from apart from the Daily Star, here comes the Tum, 800 miles of hot air. I'm not sure what they're talking about here. 31 Celsius scorcher on its way from Spain. Oh, 31 degrees in Britain is not nice. I think I might actually make it in the sea in Bournemouth this time if it gets to 31 degrees. So camping has been fantastic. It's we were in a place called Burnbake. It's been brilliant for the children. I got them some water pistols. They were running around playing with their water pistols. There was one day when I was like, okay, let's go and get ice cream. They're like, no, let's play this maths game. These are my children. Right. So we were playing this maths game. And then I started to write down certain number. I think it was the 3 times table for my youngest, who's 5, who was struggling with it a bit. And then he started drawing. And then they just spent about an hour and a half drawing Minecraft stuff and all kinds of stuff. And it was great to see my kids with no technology, running around, the field, drawing, asking me to read another chapter from The Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, just having a great time. And it was great for me to just stop. And I remember my eldest said, Mama, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. And he just looked at me quizzically, because it's so unusual for me to just sit and not do anything, because usually I'm cleaning something I don't know, there's always something to do, isn't there? But it was so nice to just stop. And one thing my partner and I have always been very good at is having great holidays where we may one day go off and do a major, right? Because there was one day we walked for absolutely miles and then walked all the way down this treacherous precipice down a cliff to a place called Chapman's Pool, which is beautiful. And my boys were loving it because they spent the whole time there looking for, and now I never say this correctly, anemones. Anemones. Anyway, so they found loads of fossils, dinosaur fossils, and like anemone things. I really can't. I could never say it, no matter how many times people say it to me. Can somebody spell it? And I'll be able to go on. Tom Hopkins Burke will be the one that will be able to spell anemones, if you know what I'm talking about. The little dinosaur fossils that you find all over the beach and stuff. And because we were on the Jurassic coast, so many fossils, it was unbelievable. And the kids absolutely loved it. So it's been a brilliant time. And and that's part of the reason why I haven't got a clue what's going on in the news, because my phone has pretty much been off unless we went to the shops into Swanage. But it's been brilliant. Right, I'm going to do one more advert and then we'll close up the show. If I can find it.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
So, welcome back. We've been talking to Claire Erasmus, about mental health issues. We've been talking about me going camping, and I have to say, a massive game changer for me was I bought this little Calagas heater. I mean, it is dinky. It's probably the size of my laptop. It's really little. And before I put the boys to bed, I turned it on inside the tent, and we all got cozy, and I wasn't freezing. I wasn't cold at all. And the other major thing was, I don't know if you saw the meteor shower. Every mid-August, every year, mid-August, there's a meteor shower. And this year, the clouds parted just in time. And I saw, although my other half disputes this because he only saw 3, but I saw 34 shooting stars. 34. So if anyone can beat that, let me know, because the skies were absolutely clear and they were like fireballs just shooting across the sky. It was just one after the other. It was fantastic. I also saw one last night, which was lovely. Okay, and and the final thing is, one of my friends, Kathy, has never ever seen a shooting star, which I do not understand. How can you not have seen a shooting star? So yeah, I still don't understand. Anyway, I sent her a message saying, just saw a shooting star, and her message back was rude, basically. I cannot repeat it on air. So yeah, so this is me signing off. Next week, I have no idea what's going on. So yeah, later on we've got Emily, follow on show. We've also got Lucy Neuberger. She's on as well, one of our newer hosts. Tomorrow morning we've got Tabitha. Yeah, so we've got another couple of weeks of the summer to go. I mean, I feel like I've had a great summer already, and we've still got another couple of weeks. So enjoy the break. Yeah, have a great week. Speak to you soon.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.